Hi everyone. My name is Heather Wamsley. I'm the Assistant Director of Employer Relations at our Carnegie Mellon Career and Professional Development Center. Welcome to our CMU Talent Insider webinar. Today we will be hearing from the School of Architecture from Professor and Head of School Omar Khan and Jenna Capelet, our Director of Outreach Programs for the School of Architecture. So I will be handing it off to both of you to tell us more about architecture and the types of skills that our students learn and how architecture can be used in the workforce.
Thank you.
Well, great. Thank you, Heather. Well, welcome everyone. We'd love to sort of share with you a little bit about the school. Let me start by just sharing my screen. We have a little slide deck here, which will be helpful for us to be able to talk through. Okay, I think everyone should be able to see that then. Maybe we can start with just the School of Architecture itself. It's a very complex school with undergraduate and graduate programs. We pride ourselves on being able to construct an education that relies really on three pillars. One is computation, the other is sustainability, and the third is public interest. All three of these pillars of our education feed our design education. And as you'll sort of see, the complexity of our school is that we just don't teach, let's say, the professional degrees of architecture, whether it's a bachelor's or a master's degree in architecture, but we also have considerable other programs that sort of provide the environment within which a whole variety of different explorations can take place. So within our undergraduate program, we have also a Bachelor of Arts in Architecture program, a four-year degree, but also in our master's programs, as you can see, we have 7 master's programs, a considerable graduate school, informing not only our professional education in architecture, but also in urban design, in sustainable design, in building performance diagnostics, computational design, and then architecture, engineering, and construction management. On the left, you sort of see the number of students we have. So it's a pretty large group of also graduate students. We also run 4 doctorate programs, which is quite wonderful because this provides us with being always on the cutting edge of research in these areas, a PhD in architecture, but also in the science programs that we have between building performance, computational design, architecture, engineering, construction management. So as a complex school, one of the things that we are always looking at is how we can create synergy across these programs, how we can help define perhaps certain large agendas which not just a single program, but all programs to some level begin to address. And those have for us been basically the 3 large challenges. The first and the most significant challenge is the challenge of climate change and how architecture is to respond to that. All of our programs address this in slightly different ways, but the focus on making climate, the understanding the science of climate change, how that influences the performance of buildings, whether it's in energy performance or whether it's in material performance, are critical to how our students are taught. Artificial intelligence, because of we have a master's program in computation, we are always looking at new tools and ways in which new technologies are beginning to influence not only the making of architecture, but also its production, but also how we will live in a sensor and enhanced environment, augmented environment that will probably be quite, if not already present, but definitely present when the students are out working very soon. And artificial intelligence, not only obviously being here at CMU, where it is a central part of the education here, but plays a big role also in terms of our program. Artificial intelligence opens up, of course, a whole host of social and ethical issues, and those are things that we feel it's very important for our students to address and understand, because even as these technologies embed themselves in the built environment, understanding how they intersect with people is really what is most important. And that then, of course, brings us to the third big challenge, which is the challenge of social justice and how the built environment and the diversity of people that live on the earth engage that. And so social justice remains a big issue and concern of ours. Our desires for a more community engaged design process, but also our focus on larger social questions, global questions, concerns of things like the global South and migration, and how that will influence the built environment is very important. So with these three challenges and the complexity of our programs, I wanted to sort of share with you, and Jenna and I will speak a little bit here about what are the qualities and competencies that we're instilling in our students. First and foremost, the maybe most critical one is that our students are design thinkers, and design thinking is now, of course, quite, let's say, common to people in architecture and design, but perhaps now in the business community is being adopted, as well as in other parts of education. Design thinkers really are able to be not only problem thinkers, but also problem solvers. They can take a problem and analyze its complexity from multiple points of views, whether that's historical and cultural, but also it's technical. How do we actually now move something once we've thought this problem through towards some kind of solution? And then modeling those solutions, how do we take those and begin to not only draw them up, but also physically model them, also create scenarios such that we can start communicating about them. And so these are skill sets, obviously, that are quite familiar to people who understand architecture, but even those that are, let's say, employers that don't really maybe understand architecture as well. The students are capable of not only taking a problem, analyzing it, but really now moving towards solving it. How do we solve it? And then finally, the solution is not only in terms of, let's say, all of these different kind of skill sets, graphical, verbal, and so forth, but really in its execution. And we pride ourselves here at CMU with having our students do a bunch of design build kinds of projects through their education. I'll show you another one a little bit later. And we feel, for instance, this one is a benefit to the community here. It's a sitting area that was designed by the students and then built with the help of faculty and our shop manager into a very usable and wonderful space. And so this whole trajectory of design thinking, not only analyzing the complexity of a problem, but moving it towards a solution, and then actually seeing how people intersect with that solution is really important. Let me pass this on now to Jenna to maybe speak a little bit about how our students are very good communicators.
Yeah, thank you, Omar. Within any of the programs here in the School of Architecture, we ask our students to be able to present their ideas both verbally and graphically. That might seem natural to a student of design or architecture. From the outset, students are taught to be good listeners, learn how to take criticism and provide criticism to others constructively as part of critique that is central to our studio experiences. As designers, it is important for all of our students to understand our audience or the user. They lean on the expertise of communities and their peers to understand the human experience that they will impact as a designer. And within, you can see here, a public exhibition is central to the student work. This is an example of a second year exhibit, which is something that the students contribute to with their own work, but also in the design of the space and how that work is to be received and communicated spatially for the viewers.
Great. And then, maybe the third very significant piece for us is that they are excellent collaborators. And this is a very important part of our thinking, that right from their initial thinking about architecture, they must understand that any complex problem is not capable to be solved single-handedly. And so while we also emphasize a lot of interdisciplinary education here, the students being on CMU campus are able to take lots of other courses. There's a strong emphasis on minors. A lot of our students do minors in human-computer interaction, plus design and other kinds of areas. But we really want to emphasize this issue of collaboration. And this is a really good example I want to share with you, because it is a predominantly student run, and this is where I see the agency of the students, giving them the kind of guidance, but actually letting them kind of figure this thing out. We are, every year, we try to do the gateway to the carnival, let's say, event that we have here at CMU in the spring semester. And students of architecture basically design what's known as the kind of entry gateway. And the entry gateway, basically requires not only a design that has to be structurally, et cetera, approved, and so they must sort of think through that, but also how now they're going to execute it. It's not left to pass it on to others to sort of build this. They must now organize. And so while there are students who've done the design, there's also now the question of construction management, the buying of materials. All of these things are not done within the auspices of a course, but really helping the students organize themselves. And then they invite other students. And so this is a project that took about 40 different students from first year to fifth year, working in different kind of collaborations over a period of about 4 weeks to pull something like this together. Now, the gateway is quite exciting. It's wonderful. It's part of the event, and it sort of begins to be part of the life of the school. That's another thing they begin to sort of see, that endeavor that they've put themselves through now has actually a life of its own outside of their own hard work. But then at the conclusion of it all, this is all of the kind of critical students that were involved in it, enjoying their time in terms of their success. But what is most important also is that they have to take this thing down. And as we emphasize quite a bit, it's not simply the ability to understand that you've sort of completed a project, but the project is not complete until you have thought about where this material is going to go after. And so the students, having taken the materials down, have already thought about its recycling. Most of this work material went back to some community groups who are doing building projects. And so the understanding that materials are not to be understood as things that gets thrown away, but part of the larger ethics, which we want to sort of impart to the students, that their actions have reactions. And if they think through their actions quite deeply, they can influence and do more meaningful things in the world. So this is a wonderful project of a collaboration, not only among students, but also amongst students and the larger Pittsburgh community, where they begin to sort of engage also with communities that are of need in terms of, let's say, materials like this that they can sort of use. So maybe we can sort of move towards concluding a little bit here as to what our students are seeking in their employers. Maybe I can just start up here a little bit, and then Jenna, maybe you can follow. So what I would say is that most of our students do go into architecture and its allied professions, but we have a substantial number that do seek unconventional directions. And these include in technology firms, most definitely community and government organizations, as well as the entertainment sector. And this sort of speaks a lot about the kind of diversity of our students leaving out. There's a very complex group of them in terms of their education. It's an interdisciplinary education. And so that sort of focuses them to not think of basically the architectural profession as the only direction for them to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we have such a diverse experience in our education, they also seek an inclusive and diverse work environment when they leave the School of Architecture. Our student body is about 40% international, over 65% identify as female, and we have students of a wide variety of ethnicities, age. We have unconventional students come in after other experiences in their life and in their work. The educational environment sort of reflects that diversity, and that's what they would also like to see in their workplace when they leave us.
Yeah, and so maybe in terms of conclusion, I would love to hear from you, some questions here. The students, as you can understand, are technically quite advanced, so I didn't want to sort of speak too much towards those areas. But I think for them, their interest is to find employers that provide them with challenges and projects that are really problem thinking. And ultimately, there's real interest in doing societal improvement. So there's a real desire to be in firms that are thinking in terms of these larger challenges that we as a society face, and how that can sort of plug into their work, their thinking, and so therefore, I think employers that see themselves as sort of contributing to these larger issues are ones that are quite attractive to our students.
Yeah, when we have students join us, we often ask why they are studying architecture. And for many of them, it's because they know that they can create real change in the world through the built environment, either working directly as an architect or in one of the adjacent fields. And I think that reasoning still stands when they leave us as well, that they're hoping to make real change.
Well, wonderful. I'm happy to take some questions. Let me stop sharing here so we can perhaps invite some questions. Maybe it's easiest, Heather, to just put it in the chat, some questions. Is that perhaps the right way to go?
Yes, so I did invite the attendees to put anything in the Q&A if they had any questions. Okay. So give it a few more seconds to see if anybody has any. Nobody has submitted any questions just yet. Well, I don't see any questions come. Oh, here we go. Todd has a question. How does global sustainability play in the education world, i.e., i.e. the war in Ukraine? Global sustainability, not sustainability.
Sorry, Heather, repeat that again. So how does the...
How do global societal conflicts play in the educational world and what you guys are doing in the School of Architecture, and for example, the war in Ukraine? Yeah,
so that's wonderful. I think this is big. So the question of the reality of politics, the fact that we are a global community of students here makes the world always present on campus. It is almost impossible for us to sort of imagine ourselves excluded from some of these societal issues. Now, of course, the war in Ukraine, we have students that are from the region, from both sides. These are complex issues that we must deal with. And also, obviously, the outcomes of that, not only on, let's say, the global economy, but also in terms of how we sort of understand the way people must behave. So globalization, I think it plays a big role in our student body. And so in our education, how we're really trying to tackle it. And, as within, of course, in America right now, there's a tremendous amount of concern in the polarization that we're sort of feeling within our politics. But how that plays out when you're really dealing with the fact that many of our students, as we say, 40% are international and will go back to their countries. And we do have a huge alumni base abroad. So when we do deal with these kind of issues, we have to not deal with in very partisan ways. And so it's really become a big debate within the school in terms of bringing politics to bear, in terms of our understanding of the built environment, obviously in terms of now resources. Energy, of course, is a huge factor with Russia being a provider of petrochemical and energy to Europe. So all of these factors, I think, do play a big role. As I said, one of our big components is sustainability, and sustainability is understood not only in terms of materials and energy in terms of the built environment, but also in terms of how you can think long-term about how such an environment, socially can be also sustainable. So it's not just the technological issue, it's really the social issues that are tied to it. I hope that addresses it to some level in terms of, it is a very complex thing, but we're so much in that world that we can't find ourselves removed from it.
Thank you. We do have a couple more. Sandra asked, do we have capability to share our positions with your students? That might be more of a question for me. So yes, Sandra, you and all of our employers can share the positions with the students. You use Handshake to do so. So your company should have a Handshake account, which you likely have. And then it's when you post your positions, you can indicate on the positions that these are directed towards architecture students and architecture majors. And you're welcome, of course, to reach out to me individually. You should have my email address from the invite to this event. If you have any specific questions about how to utilize the platform or better ways to connect to students, I'd be happy to speak with you one-on-one about that. But overall, we're a Handshake school. All the positions that we share with our students should be posted as positions on Handshake. And then there is another question that Jenna has indicated that she'll answer. So I'll read it out loud real quick, Jenna, for you. As an employer, what benefits are students looking for beyond financial incomes? Is there a desire to be together as a group, collaborative, or is there some desire to work from home? How do you address collaboration in that viewpoint?
I think this is a great question. And the answer is a little bit complex. Our students right now have experienced both working together collaboratively in a studio and working on studios from home. And I know they find comfort in being together in person in a group, but they're also quite good at being social and collaborating over Zoom. So I know for some of them, they are leaning towards work from home scenarios, and others are really excited to be in collaborative workplace settings. So I think the answer is both, but in either sense, they have been collaborating throughout their experience here in the School of Architecture, and will probably continue to want to have a hand in important parts of your work, whatever that may be, and contribute in a variety of different ways. So I would say collaboration, yes, absolutely, but their modes could be different.
Great, thanks, Jenna. And we don't have any other open questions, so I will leave it at that. So thank you to everybody who attended. Thank you, Jenna and Omar. And like I said, this is a recorded session, so it will be posted on our website and our YouTube channel, and I will be sharing it with our registrants as well. So thank you all so much for being here.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.